So the law is, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So the way you think and feel, so are you. And your thought and feeling creates your destiny. Your heart is your subconscious mind. And whatever you impress in that subconscious mind comes forth as form, function, experience, and event. You're not subject to forces outside yourself. These are created things. You don't give power to men, women, and children, to the sun, the moon, and the stars. God created all these things. Stars are molecules moving in space. They're molecular, just like your body, as waves of light. And the planets are harmless. Therefore, you don't give power to external things. You're told there's nothing good or bad, but thinking makes it so. That's an absolute truth. Some people say, well, strawberries give me hives. Well, if that were true, everybody in the world who ate strawberries would get hives, but they don't. That person has made a law for himself. He has a bad relationship with strawberries. And when he says strawberries give me hives, that's a command to his subconscious mind. And of course, when he eats strawberries, then the subconscious sees the strawberries coming down and says the boss wants hives, so it proceeds to give you hives. These are laws you make for yourself. Or you might say, well, I can't eat mushrooms, I get acute indigestion. Well, that's a law you made for yourself. Millions of people eat mushrooms and they don't get indigestion. You see, if it were a law, everybody in the world would suffer accordingly. So you don't judge according to appearances. The five senses report an avalanche of sights and sounds and sundry concepts, good and bad. But you're not a victim of the five senses. You can reject what you see, what you hear. You can see peace where discord is, love where hatred is, joy where sadness is, light where darkness is, life where so-called death is. You can discipline your senses, and you can taste the sweet savor of God. Taste the truth like you taste an apple. Judge not according to appearances. You're here to separate the sheep from the goats, the false from the real. So the ragweed, some people say the ragweed gives them, asthma or hay fever or something like that. If that were true, that were a cosmic law, everybody in the world, when that got in touch with ragweed, they would get coryza and tearing, lacrimal ducts would begin to tear, and inflammation of the mucosa and all these symptoms, or paroxysmal attacks. The same thing, like a person tells them sensitive to red roses or allergic to red roses. If you hypnotize that person and put a glass of distilled water under his nose and said, this is a red rose, well, now it's distilled water. He get all the symptoms right there in front of you. Now tell me, honestly, where is the allergy? Isn't it in his mind as a belief? Surely it isn't in the distilled water. He's probably allergic to his wife, or to his boss, or someone on the next bench or something. Don't you know that the ragweed and the pollen and all these things are the same substance as your own bloodstream? There's only one substance. God is the only presence, power, cause, and substance. Everything is spirit made manifest. So the ragweed, or what you whatever you call it, or the pollen, or the dust, all these that have gone. Everything is spirit made manifest, for there isn't spirit and matter. Matter is the lowest degree of spirit, and spirit is the highest degree of matter. They're interconvertible, interchangeable. They're the same thing. So I visited Dr. Viktor Frankl of Vienna some years ago, distinguished psychiatrist. He was in Auschwitz, in a prison camp, He wrote Man's Search for Meaning. He practiced what is called logotherapy. He's a medical doctor, distinguished psychiatrist. He and other doctors were imprisoned. Now, this is what he says. He was imprisoned with other doctors in Auschwitz, and he said, we were anxious to know what would happen, what would be the consequence. For example, they had to stand out in the open air. They took a shower. They had no clothes on. They weren't given a towel or anything at all. It was in the late autumn. The weather was very cold. and they stood stark naked and still wet from the showers. In the next few days, our curiosity evolved into surprise. We were surprised that we didn't catch cold. There were many similar surprises in store for the new arrivals. The medical men among us, he said, learned, first of all, that the textbook tell lies. They were angry because the textbook told lies. They didn't get a cold. They didn't get pneumonia. Somewhere it is said that man cannot exist without sleep for more than a certain stated number of hours. That's quite wrong. I had been convinced that there were certain things I just could not do, but I couldn't sleep without this, or I could not live without that or the other. We slept in beds which were constructed in tiers. On each tier, measuring about 6.5 to 8 feet, slept 9 men, directly on the boards. 2 blankets were shared by each 9 men. We could, of course, lie only on our sides, crowded and huddled against each other, which had some advantages because of the bitter cold. Though it was forbidden to take shoes up to the bunks, some people did use them secretly as pillows, in spite of the fact they were caked with mud. Now I would like to mention, he says, a few similar surprises, how much we could endure. We were unable to clean our teeth, yet in spite of that and a severe vitamin deficiency, we had healthier gums than ever before. We had to wear the same shirts for half a year, until they had lost all appearance of being shirts. For days we were unable to wash, even partially, because of frozen water pipes. And yet the sores and abrasions on our hands, which were dirty from work in the soil, did not separate. That is, unless there was frostbite. If someone had asked of us the truth of the statement that flatly defines man as a being who can get used to anything, we would reply, yes, a man can get used to anything, but do not ask us how. But our psychological investigations have not taken us that far yet. Neither had we prisoners reached that point. So he said, don't ask us how, because the ways of the infinite are past finding out. Here they were, according to the textbook, they were all doctors. They should all get pneumonia, but they didn't. Nobody died. They were in a higher state of mind, dwelling in a higher level of consciousness. So Dr. Fleet of London told me that during the war that she was on a starch diet. She couldn't get the things that she used to, was accustomed to rather. Other people are on a starch diet. She said neurotics and psychotics. They performed marvelous things during the war. Under the pressure of war, they became calm. They ministered to people and all that. And she said we had no vitamins, and our diet was contrary to all science, all scientific findings, and we were healthier than ever before. So the same thing as this doctor found out, you see. So we are not victims of the weather, you know. A lot of people are deceived. Rawson brought out, for example, a great scientist in scientific prayer. He spoke about a woman who had a clairvoyant vision, a student of his, and she saw this plane on fire in her dream. She and another woman went and prayed in that area, and lo and behold, they saw the plane come down. They contemplated the presence of love and peace and harmony and beauty and right action there, and their minds and hearts, they were immersed in the holy omnipresence. And the plane came down, but these men were not burned. It is on fire. They were in a blazing furnace. Because at higher levels of your mind you can't be burned. And they proved it. That's, of course, absolutely true. So surely fire burns, yes, but not at higher levels. When you tune in on the infinite and reach a high state of consciousness, you're immune. Neither does cancer have to kill you. If the person decides that he can ascend in consciousness, definitely believe he will be healed. In the Psychic Digest a few years ago, there appeared this story. Not many people know that Virginia Graham's success in her famous TV Girl Talk show came after she licked terminal cancer and made medical history. her doctor explained the miracle Virginia experienced in these words. She purified her bloodstream with her thoughts. Actually, this came about as a result of Virginia's fervent prayers, when she knew she would be healed and would live. I have a surviving point of view, she claimed. I am not interested in sinking or floating. This love of life communicates itself and is probably one of the reasons for her TV show, Climbing to the Top. So these great truths, of course, are there. The clairvoyant vision, they saw this airplane come out of the clouds in flames. It burned out about 100 feet from the ground, then cracked and fell. She looked about to see what the men were like. She couldn't distinguish anything about them. They were burned to a cinder in a dream. And then the two stood there praying in that area. The airplane came out of flame, burned and cracked just as she had seen. There were 2 men in it. They were absolutely untouched. It was like the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the Bible. One of the men said, I was about to throw myself out of the plane when suddenly a sense of absolute peace and safety came, and I sat back in the machine. There he was in a furnace. That man turned out to be the son of the lady she had asked to come and help her. So there is, down through the ages, of course, Indians have walked in fire under controlled conditions, under the skeptical eyes of science itself. Clifton Pierce, a research scholar, in his writings, pointed out that in Surrey, England, in 1936, the English Society for Psychical Research ran a series of tests on 2 Indian fakers, imported expressly for the purpose. The tests were graded by doctors, chemists, physicists, and psychologists of Oxford. The Indians walked the fire under controlled conditions, under the skeptical eyes of science itself. No chemicals were used, no preparations made. They repeated the performance under a variety of conditions over a period of several weeks in demand. Surface temperatures were between 450 and 500 degrees centigrade. The interior temperature, 1400 degrees centigrade. There was no trickery or hallucination. These, of course, are very, very common. And what Quinby wanted to bring out years ago was that sickness was of the mind. And he said that people got their infection in the church. They got this guilt complex and fear, which made them sick, and he had to teach them a God of love, because they had a belief in a punitive God, that God was punishing them. So, for example, supposing a part of your body was severed, a limb or an arm put on a shelf, it couldn't catch cancer, tuberculosis, arthritis, or ringworm, or any disease. Why? It's separated from the mind. It undergoes dissolution. Dissolution is not a disease, it's a natural phenomenon. So here were these doctors, out in the evening, freezing temperature, and yet they didn't catch a cold. They were supposed to get pneumonia because their mind were elsewhere in their higher state of mind, So the wounds, they had open lesions, they failed to separate. Even they were dirty. And these things have happened, So the Indian faker sleeps in a bed of nails because he's been hypnotized and told whenever he pronounces a certain word, he can throw himself on a bed of nails and they will not penetrate the skin. I've seen that. You have too, probably. That's a conditioning process. Lao Tzu, 600 BC, said that when the sage goes forth into the jungle, he carries no sword and no spear. He's not afraid of a javelin or the tooth of a rhinoceros, because there is in him no place where these can enter. In other words, he's built up an immunity. He's got intoxicated, received the divine antibody. So the externals are not causative, but man can make them a cause. And that's the great lie, that external things are causative. They are not. Our eyes deceive us frequently. We see the sun, the moon, and the stars, as well as each other, by means of our eyes, which function in a manner similar to a camera. But don't judge according to appearances. Your five senses bring you an avalanche of sights and sounds and sundry concepts, most of which are negative. All right, are you governed by your five senses during the day? Predictions of doom and gloom? Do you know when they show the mentioned two vice presidents, I think it was, wives had cancer or something? Some doctors told me that hundreds of women flocked the office. Fear. You know, that's why Quinby said, you know, that they fear is behind this disease. And they create the disease. He said, you tell a man who never heard of the word cancer, and tell him that he's got cancer. It has no effect whatever upon him. But as Quinby pointed out, you tell a man who's heard all the ravages of cancer, you know, say, look, that little lump, maybe he fell down, maybe it's a harmless lump, you know, maybe he hurt himself. And you tell him, that's cancer, malignant, it's evil. He said he'll go home and he'll make it. Fear in his mind. That which I greatly feared has come upon me. Now, so don't judge according to appearances. Physiologists tell us that when, for example, we look at a tree, its inverted image is reflected on the retina of our eyes, which in turn transmit the picture to the brain centers. These reactions are called visual impressions. The physiologist says that we see with the brain. You know that you see with your mind, you see with your eyes closed. You can see with your mother if you close your eyes now. You can see colors better when your eyes are closed. Vision is spiritual, eternal, indestructible. You see in your dreams. The faculty of clairvoyance is in all of us, though more highly developed in some. You're frequently deceived by what you look at. For example, a stick inserted in water appears broken. It isn't. When you stand on a railroad track, the two parallel lines of the rail seem to come together. In the distance, white figures seem to be larger than black ones. Your eye deceives you. Yes. Your eye often misrepresents the true state of existence because it deals only with the surface appearance effect. People say the sun rises, the sun sets. Actually, it neither rises nor sets. We see nothing as it is in reality, because our eyes are geared to see according to our beliefs. If our eyes were geared in any other way, we would see things differently. An airplane seems to move in a straight line. In reality, it follows a geometrical arc. The razor blade with which you shave seems very sharp and straight. Yet when seen under a microscope, it is a wavy line. It's not solid at all. A piece of steel seems solid. Yet scientists point out that X-rays reveal it to be porous, just like your body. That in reality, it is made up of trillions of animated miniature universes, each having an extraordinarily rapid movement, yet no physical contact with each other. If you looked at a photograph of your mother with a magnifying glass, her face would look like a succession of gray, black, and white points, depending on whether the paper is black, gray, or white. The portrait of your mother disappears. It only existed because your eyes were geared to a three-dimensional level. You saw it in the scale of your accustomed observation, looking at the razor blade with the eyes of science. We see electrons in perpetual motion which travel at the rate of several thousand miles per second. So if you say that you believe in the stars, that they're jinxed, that they're malignant or malefic configuration of the stars in the sky. God pronounced everything he made and said it's good. It isn't the stars, it's your belief, as Quinby brought out. It's not the external thing. You're making an external thing a cause. And nothing good or bad, but thinking makes it so. You made that law for yourself. Your sister born at the same second as you were, and you're identical twins. She is taking up the study of the science of mind or something, and she's leading a marvelous and wonderful life, while you're suffering from your belief in the malefic configurations of the planets. And things are going upside down for you, and everything is going wrong because of your belief. Because whether you're consciously thinking of it or not, whatever you believe in your subconscious, it brings it to pass, you know. Whether you're consciously thinking about it or not, So it's a very dangerous thing to think that the planets are against you, are working against you. You made a belief. You're making an external thing a cause. The whole world believes a lie, he said. When I tell them the truth, he said, they think I'm telling them a lie. They think God up there is punishing them. The light principle can't punish you. It forgives you. If you burn yourself, it forgives you, gives you new skin and tissue. If you cut yourself, it forms thrombin, gives you new skin also. It always seeks to heal. The infinite cannot punish you. Its eyes are too pure to behold iniquity. God is the eternal now. Now is the day of salvation. You're not a victim of karma. You're not a victim of the past because you're dealing with a timeless, spaceless being. Therefore, there's no past to worry about. The past is dead. Nothing matters but this moment. Change this moment, and you change your destiny. A new beginning is a new end. And the new beginning is when you enthrone godlike ideas in your mind and live with them. The future is your present thinking grown up. And then the desert of your life will rejoice and blossom as the rose. That's the good news, the gospel, the truth of being. You're not a victim of the past. You change your mind now. And the murderer can be changed in the twinkling of an eye. Of course he can. We punish ourselves by our misuse of law. Your five senses bring reports to you from the outside world, which are not always true, but are oftentimes harmful and destructive. Thoughts which you emotionalize, accept as true, enter into your subconscious and produce effects on your body and affairs according to their nature. Here's a young man who believed a lie. He was gradually going blind, and his doctor told him to leave the tailoring business, which was his vocation, because it caused a strain on his eyes and to take a less arduous job. The ophthalmologist couldn't find anything radically wrong with the fundus, the part opposite the pupils of his eyes. Thought the difficulty might be emotional. This young man was blaming his work and the resultant strain on his eyes, caused by sewing all day. The real cause of his eye trouble, however, was that he wanted to exclude his wife from his world. He went to a psychic, and she made a chart for him. She said, the planets are against you. Mars will square your sun, so forth. It frightened the life out of him. He thought the stars were against him now. The whole trouble was, it's not the stars, it's we ourselves, that we are underlings. The real cause of his eye trouble was that he wanted to exclude his wife from his world. He said she was a nagger. He hated to go home. The trouble was within himself. Among his frequent expressions to me were, I hate the sight of her. I can't stand to look at her. I can't see my way out because I have 2 children and they need her. She won't give me a divorce, and I want the children. His subconscious mind accepted as request these feelings and statements and proceeded to respond by occluding his vision so that eventually he wouldn't be able to see. It had nothing to do with the planets, nothing to do with the tailoring business, nothing to do with the atmosphere. You don't give power to external things. You give power to the Almighty that's within you. Omnipotent, supreme. There's nothing to oppose it, challenge it, thwart it, vitiate it. You don't make a created thing a cause. That's why the whole world believes a lie. I got this man and his wife together and explained the workings of the mind. She cooperated by ceasing to nag. They began to pray together, seeing God at each other. They also began to speak to one another kindly and lovingly. Moreover, they prayed every night and morning, alternating several selected psalms, 23rd, 27th, 46th, 91st, and 100th psalms, magnificent psalms. The psalms are songs of God. With meditations from Quiet Moments with God, a book of mine containing 60 special prayers. In a month's time, his vision was back to normal. The ophthalmologist congratulated him. His vision was normal. This man was certainly lying to himself by blaming his environment and his job. when all the time the true cause was in his destructive, negative emotions. Disease means a lack of peace, a lack of ease. Disease is of the mind. Many people think disease is out there, that the body catches disease. That's why the world believes a lie. All disease is of the mind. Nothing happens in the body, except it first happens in the mind. I had a chat with a man some years ago who had been taking sedation, rest cures, and observing a special diet for colitis, from which he had suffered for several years. He was lying to himself, blamed heredity, and died as the cause. He said, colitis runs in my family. My grandmother and my mother had it also, and I'm sure the food I eat has something to do with my trouble. What we need is spiritual food. You can eat the choicest food in the world, you know, and get up hungry from the table, hungry for love or peace or harmony. Don't you know that people eat the choicest food in the world? They have all the vitamins and the minerals, and still they die because of negative, destructive emotions. The negative emotions will turn that food into poison that you eat. We need the bread of heaven, the bread of peace and of harmony and of love. Lord, evermore, give us this bread.